How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Momentum Motorsports Meeting. My name is Wyatt Thompson. We are on episode number 51. This is the last episode of the semester. This is being recorded during finals week. I know a lot of you are getting through that and trying to get through it, just trying to finish up the semester and kind of ready for the nice winter break. Believe me, I'm kind of feeling the emotional drain too as well. But for this week, we're gonna talk a lot. There's a lot to talk about. We've got the F1 Series finale at Abu Dhabi. We've got the Snowball Derby at Five Flags Speedway, and then we're also gonna cover a lot of O'Reilly Auto Parts Series news. Basically, kind of silly season for that series, along with some trucks, some Arca, a little bit of IndyCar mixed in there in our Motorsports segment. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to it. This is Momentum Motorsports Meeting. Alrighty, before we begin, I do want to share some news, some very sad news that I saw online. Unfortunately, Michael Annett passed away at age 39. He ran in all three NASCAR, primary series, the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Truck Series. A lot of fans kind of remember him for winning the 2019 Xfinity Series race opener at Daytona back in February. Just a huge shock to the entire NASCAR community. And when I saw that he had passed away, even I was a little shocked. I was like, wow, that is just so shocking. It was during the weekend too. Like of all the days, of the week, I really didn't expect that. And I'm very, very shocked. I'm a little sad, honestly. Like, I never knew him, but I know a lot of fans. Like, there are a good amount of fans that really liked Michael Annett as a driver and loved rooting for him. So thoughts and prayers to Michael Annett's family, friends, the teams that he competed for, along with Michael Annett's fans. That's definitely very sad. Alrighty, so now we're gonna go ahead and get into some of the race reviews. We've got the F1 Series finale at Abu Dhabi and the Snowball Derby. We'll go ahead and talk about the F1 Series finale first. The final race of the F1 season. Let's kind of talk about it. The F1 Championship kind of came all down to this. The points and the scenarios were set. Norris essentially had to finish third place or better to win the F1 Championship. Verstappen, he had dominated the day and won the race, but that wasn't enough. He needed more help. Piastri pretty much stayed in second for like 99% of this race, and so all eyes were on Lando Norris. Now, near the first part of this race, when green flag pit stops were starting to begin, Lando Norris had kind of decided to do an undercut, and it seemed like it was going to work, but unfortunately, he had a lot of traffic. He had to pass like Liam Lawson. I think he had to pass an Aston Martin car, and he also had to pass Yuki Tsunoda. Now, on the straightaway towards turn 5, Lando Norris kind of made an attempt to pass Yuki Tsunoda and kind of went off track. Now, race control had reviewed it, and they gave Yuki Tsunoda a time-second penalty while Lando Norris wasn't. Now, looking at the replay, I feel like both drivers should have gotten penalized. Yuki Tsunoda kind of forced Lando Norris off track, but to be fair, Lando Norris also overtook Yuki Tsunoda off track. There was no more track. There was a little bit of paint, and that's kind of track limits, essentially, and all four tires were clearly in that little paint area on that straightaway. So, yeah, I don't really know. I personally feel like, this is the championship race. Lando Norris, you don't want, the guy that's that's led the point standings lose off of something, that race control that you make. And so I feel like if I were them, I wouldn't penalize Lando Norris, but I would penalize Yuki Tsunoda. I understand, the reason. I understand kind of the fan outcry of saying, like, why didn't you penalize Lando Norris? Like, he clearly overtook Yuki Tsunoda off track. And I agree. I actually agree with that, but I don't know. It's a very tough call to make, because it's like it could have affected the championship, and like Verstappen literally could have won it if Lando Norris had gotten a time second penalty. He could have. I mean, Verstappen might have needed some more help, but it would have increased his chances. So yeah, I just looking at it, it's a tough call to make, and that's really the only thing that happened this race. Like, there weren't any safety cars that kind of created different strategy. It was just a straight up green flag race where Verstappen had won, and unfortunately for him, it just wasn't enough. He just couldn't overtake Lando Norris on points, and so the F1 championship goes to Lando Norris. Congratulations to him. That's extremely well deserved. He had the most momentum, kind of heading into this race. Ever since that week where he started making up a ton of points on Oscar Piastri, it was like where Oscar Piastri had made a mistake, and that allowed Lando Norris to cover up a bunch of ground. That really kind of, I think that might have been the main difference maker in Lando Norris winning that championship. Like, and that also helped Verstappen too, in a way, because Verstappen was third in points behind the two McLaren drivers for much of the season. But ever since Piastri made that mistake, I can't remember what race it was, but ever since he kind of, crashed out during that race, Lando Norris just kind of made up more and more points on Oscar Piastri little by little and got it done. So huge congratulations to Lando Norris. Max Verstappen and Red Bull finished second. Man, they gave it everything they had, man, and props to them for not giving up, because if it was 8 races left, I feel like I would have given up probably, just because you're just way too far back. You just won't be able to, catch up to Lando Norris on points. I just don't think it's possible. But Verstappen, man, Verstappen and Red Bull had a lot going for them, the final 8 races or so, and to be fair, it did. It just wasn't quite enough. I think they had their rough start of the season, kind of back in, I think what was it, like March, something like that. I think that kind of their rough start to the season is what really did it for him. But Verstappen still had a great season and almost got it. And for Oscar Piastri finishing third in the standings, yeah, I feel like this is a season where he had the best chance. Oscar Piastri is still a very young driver, and he'll be racing for McLaren for many, many years down the line. And I think this year he'll probably take it as a nice little learning experience, because he was basically leading the points for much of the season, and then I think the pressure might have gotten to him, late in the season, and that's why he finished third in the standings. But still, Oscar Piastri had a great season. McLaren overall, they have a lot to be proud of, and I just can't wait to see what next season brings. I think Piastri will kind of learn from this and apply some of that knowledge and not make those mistakes for next year. So, yeah, huge congratulations to Lando Norris. Let's go ahead and just take a look at the point standings. We'll look at the driver standings first. Norris wins it by 2 points. 2 points. Wow, that is just insane. Ultimately came down to the wire. I really didn't believe it would be that close. I really didn't. I was just looking at everything objectively for the final 8 races, and I just didn't expect it. And the fact that it was that close, wow, what a great championship battle right there that we had all the way down to the very end. Verstappen finishes second, Piastri third, Russell in fourth. That's pretty good. Charles Leclerc rounds out the top 5 for Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton finishes 6th, only 6 points ahead of rookie Kimi Antonelli. Wow, that's kind of crazy. That Hamilton seemed to really struggle Ferrari equipment this year. I don't know what's up with it, but I feel like whether it's the strategy calls, the equipment, I feel like the equipment is fine. I think maybe it's the strategy that's kind of holding Lewis Hamilton back, and he's lucky that he finished ahead of a rookie for Mercedes, for crying out loud. So, yeah, that's something to watch out for next year. Great season for both Williams drivers, finishing in the top 10 in points. Fernando Alonso finishes 10th. Hulkenberg finishes 11th. Isaac Hadjar, another rookie, finishes 12th. Oliver Behrman, another rookie, finishes 13th. Liam Lawson, 14th. Esteban Ocon, 15th. Lance Stroll, 16th. That's a driver for Aston Martin. Ouch. Yuki Tsunoda, 17th. Double ouch right there. Gasly, 18th. Bortoleto, one of the other rookies, finishing 19th. And Franco Colapinto finishing 20th. And also, got to shout out Jack Doohan. Ran some races, but then Franco Colapinto kind of took his ride, this year. So do got to shout out him. Now we'll take a look at the constructor standings. McLaren, they obviously clinched the constructors title like 5 years ago, essentially. And just a dominating season that McLaren had overall. Mercedes finishes in second. That's pretty good. Red Bull came home third. I think they were leading to start the season, and then when Tsunoda kind of made that exchange to take Liam Lawson's ride, I think it all just kind of went out of control, and the main focus was on Max Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship. So, yeah, Verstappen came home third, only 18 points behind Mercedes, so it actually wasn't that bad. I think they just needed some more help from their second driver, Yuki Tsunoda, and Liam Lawson. But still, I'm sure Red Bull will probably prepare even more. I'm sure Red Bull will be even more prepared for next year. So something to look forward to for next year. Ferrari finishing fourth. Williams, they had a great year, finishing fifth in the constructors' standings. That's crazy. Racing Bulls and Aston Martin had a great battle for sixth, but Racing Bulls ultimately came out on top, just 3 points ahead of Aston Martin. Wow. Haas finishes 8th, just 10 points behind Aston Martin. So they had a shot to overtake Aston Martin in the constructors' title. And then Kick Sauber finishes 9th, just 9 points behind Haas. So Racing Bulls, Aston Martin, Haas, and Kick Sauber were pretty much all right there together on points. That's insane. That is very, very competitive. And then Alpine finishes in last. Really hoping Alpine can have a better season than this year. And don't forget about Cadillac, the new 11th team in 2026. Can't wait to see what they come up with. So that's the F1 season. Just kind of reflecting on the F1 season, I thought it was a good season. It definitely could have been a lot better. There were some races that were just straight up snoozers, and some races that were actually pretty good. Like, I think the Canadian Grand Prix was probably my favorite F1 race this year. And as far as, whether I'll be covering it for next year, like covering F1 races, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, the F1 races now are going to be broadcasted on Apple TV, and that's something that I just don't have, and I think Apple TV is I don't know how much Apple TV costs as far as like a daily subscription. So, yeah, I don't really have that. So, I thought this was a good year of covering F1. Obviously, I didn't cover the entire races due to the summer break, and just not really even covering it. So, I thought it was a good F1 season. I'll be staying in touch with F1. I won't be completely abandoning it. But, yeah, I definitely won't provide it on the show just because I won't be able to watch it. I feel like if I watch it, then I'll be able to kind of explain and talk about it, with you, the listeners. So, either way, great F1 season. Can't wait to see what Cadillac brings to the table in Formula One for 2026. Now we're going to go ahead and get into the Snowball Derby at Five Flags Speedway. Man, this event started out rough. It got delayed due to a lot of rain and fog that pretty much had covered the track for like the past 4 or 5 days. And at first, I was 50-50 on potentially being able to watch it. I remember I don't have a Flow Racing subscription, but I saw that Flow Racing on YouTube was streaming it live. And so I go to tune in on Sunday. Unfortunately, it gets postponed to Monday. So I'm like, okay, hopefully, the stream will still be there. And it did. And I was able to watch the first 30 minutes of it, and then it crashed. So that's a really big bummer. I feel like the Snowball Derby is kind of like the short tracks Daytona 500 in a way. And thankfully, I was actually able to watch it. I was kind of texting a friend, and he was actually able to find find it on Twitch. There was a streamer, there was a Twitch user that was thankfully streaming it. So I was actually able to watch the entire race. So yeah, I think that's just how I was able to watch it. I know a lot of fans are frustrated of not being able to watch it on YouTube only for 30 minutes. So hopefully Flow Racing can kind of fix something about that, because I feel like the Snowball Derby is a great event, and I feel like it needs to be put on another partner like Peacock TV or Amazon Prime or something like that, if you know what I mean. So now I've kind of talked about that. I want to go ahead and get into the race, because I actually really, really enjoyed this race. A 300-lap race, a limited amount of tires. So tires mean the absolute world. There was a good amount of crashes. Like Carson Brown got turned on the front stretch, and the damage was so weird that the roof, the entire roof of the car actually came up, and I was like, whoa. There were a lot of different crashes, but the one incident that I want to talk about, I guess it's not really an incident because nobody really crashed, but the one main kind of plot twist of this race came with 11 laps to go, and that's what I want to talk about. That's pretty much on everyone's mind. The final 11 laps, Ty Majeski, who had dominated the race, was the one driver to beat. He was on the inside, and he seemed to kind of jump the restart and had actually gotten black flagged. Now, earlier on, with about 13 laps to go, the restart was actually called back because Majeski took off way before the line. He had jumped it, he was miles away from the rest of the field with 13 laps to go on that restart. Race control kind of made the field try again, and with 11 laps to go, it looked a little bit better, but then, I saw on the broadcast that Majeski had gotten black flagged, and at first, I didn't think Majeski had jumped the start, because the other restarts like before this, Majeski had looked okay, but looking at the replay, I can see Majeski just barely jumping. It's super close. It is very, very close, but Majeski actually does jump the start. It's very, very close. There's a little restarting line, and I think from my understanding, the rule is you have to cross that restart line, and then you can go, and that's out of turn 4, just before the start finish line. And I'm looking at it, and I can see Ty Majeski just barely jumps. Now, Ty Majeski did protest, the decision, and unfortunately he didn't win. The decision was final. Ty Majeski, I think he finished 23rd, 5 laps down, and he was on pace to win this race. He had kind of parked his car on the front stretch after the race, kind of dabbing race control and showing the replay to everyone. And when I mean by kind of dabbing race control, he had kind of talked to reporters, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to have to talk to race control about that one, see what I did wrong. And yeah, I get what he's saying. Majeski had the best car, and personally, as a fan, I was rooting for him because he had no competition. He was the best car. He was the one to beat. The paint scheme looked solid with the Menards yellow. Oh, I loved it. I would have loved if he had won that race, because that might have been a die cast right there. But unfortunately, there was only one way he could lose it. At that point, and that was kind of make a mistake, and he did. So yeah, huge bummer for Ty Majeski. I really, really feel for him. But huge congratulations to Stephen Nasse. Stephen Nasse probably had the second to third best car, and he deserved the win, so huge congratulations to him. let's go ahead and go over these notable finishers. A lot of NASCAR drivers kind of were really involved in this Snowball Derby. Like, a lot of NASCAR drivers really like to take part in this. Like, Dawson Sutton finished second. Jake Garcia finished third. We hadn't really seen those two drivers all day until, like late in the race. Casey Klein gets a nice top 5. I think the broadcast mentioned that he had started like deep in the pack, like 32nd. So to come from like 32nd to 5th, honestly, not too bad. Shout out to David Gilliland. He had a great run. He had showed his face on the track a few times. He finishes 12th. Dustin Smith and Gavin Bochelle kind of went at it late in the race, battling inside the top 5. And then Bochelle was kind of to the inside out of turn 2, and it looked like Dustin Smith didn't really know he was there. And then both cars spun near the inside wall on the backstretch. And then I think a lap after that, Dustin Smith kind of drove to Bochelle and actually cut Bochelle's, I think it was his left front tire down. Short track tempers flaring late in the race. Smith finished 14th. Bochelle finished 16th. Those two drivers were easily top 5 contenders all race long. Kyle Busch had to make the show by racing in the last chance qualifier, and he had a rough one. He got lapped like 3 times in this race, finished 19th. I feel like I expected more from him, but again, like the competition that the Snowball Derby has, it's extremely tough. Like Noah Gragson didn't even make the show, and he was going to, and he was planning on racing at the Snowball Derby. And I can't remember, there was another NASCAR driver that also failed to make the show, but I can't remember. It might have been Carson Hocevar, actually. I don't know. It was another NASCAR driver. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, the fact that like 2 NASCAR drivers didn't make the show just kind of proves how tough this competition is. And I feel like Kyle Busch could have done better, but 19th is honestly not too bad. Caden Honeycutt, the defending Snowball Derby winner, had a rough race, spun out early, seemed to make up a little bit of ground, but then unfortunately had a mechanical issue late in the race. Cole Raz finished 24th, was running in the top 5 late in the race, and then he finished like 8 laps down. And I'm not really sure why that happened, because the broadcast hadn't really mentioned anything. And I got to give Cole Raz a lot of credit, because there were times where he had the best car, like faster than Taya Majeski. So really got to give a lot of prop to Cole Raz. That's a big driver right there that, that has raced in NASCAR for a couple of races this year. Spencer Davis had a top 5 run going for him and probably could have contended for the win like Cole Raz, but suffered a mechanical issue. I think there was an oil line leak in the left front, I believe, and race control kind of black flagged him, got him to go down pit road and fix the issue. And unfortunately, the issue, wasn't fixed, and Spencer Davis had to unfortunately retire the car. But yeah, he could have contended for the win. Finishes 28th. Dang it. And just kind of finishing up, Ryan Preece withdrew from the Snowball Derby. Not really sure why, but Max Reeves also withdrew, and according to Matt Weaver, he withdrew due to like prior commitments. So yeah, those are some. I kind of figured a couple, like there was a rumor in the garage. I saw a post that kind of talked about teams withdrawing from the event since the Snowball Derby got postponed to Monday, and I was like, man, I really hope that doesn't happen, because I really like it. Like I like the Snowball Derby. Obviously, I watched it for the first time and was able to watch it, so I would have loved to see what Ryan Preece and Max Reeves could have done, but unfortunately, we'll never really know. Those are your notable finishers, y'all. I really, really enjoyed this race. Lots of passing, tire management, crashes, strategy, short track tempers, an insane ending that was dictated by race control. I love this race a lot. I didn't really like the ending, but race control made the correct call, and I just wish it didn't come down to that. That's all. And even after that, I really thought this race was great. It was a great way to kind of end off the Motorsports season, at least for my personal and professional life. I really hope to attend this race and kind of interview some of these drivers. I was thinking about attending it this year, but then I was like, I don't really know if that's really possible. So I might save that for next year, because I think this is an event that I feel like is really, really enjoyable and should personally be broadcasted on something other than Flow Racing. No disrespect to Flow Racing, because they did a great job, covering the race on Monday, but I just feel like the Snowball Derby could use a little bit more of an audience, personally in December. So that's basically our race reviews. Now we're going to go ahead and get into our motorsports segment. We'll get into some NASCAR Cup Series news, and then we'll get into a long list of NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series news. I told you, at the start of the show, I mentioned that there was a lot of NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series silly season on the way. But we'll first start out with some Cup Series news. Rick Ware Racing announced that their Cup Series program will switch from Ford to Chevy in 2026, next season. The team will have a technical alliance with Richard Childress Racing, but their shop will remain in the RFK Racing building. Yeah, just judging off of this, I don't really know what to make of this team right now. Cody Ware finished dead last in points of all the full-time drivers this year, and I don't care who you are, that's just not good. So I don't know if Rick Ware Racing is going to improve next year. I really don't, now that they're going to Chevy. I don't really know what to make of this. For me, I feel like this really affects RFK Racing, because they're leasing a third charter. They're leasing a charter from Rick Ware Racing to field the number 60 for Ryan Preece. So I don't really know how that works. Hopefully, Ryan Preece will still be able to race in the 60 for next year. But yeah, for Rick Ware Racing, I just don't know what to make of this team right now. I mean, like 1 year ago, they had Justin Haley lined up full-time in the number 51 and Kaz Gralla. Like, that's a solid lineup. That's like their best lineup ever for them. And then the year after that, this year, they signed Cody Ware. So no disrespect to Cody Ware, but he finished dead last in points, and that's just not good. So hopefully Rick Ware Racing can kind of improve for next year, since they're going to Chevy. I don't know. Wishing Rick Ware Racing the best of luck. Now, we'll go ahead and get into the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series silly season, if you could call it. First up, some shocking news. Nick Sanchez has announced that he will not return to the number 48 next year for Big Machine Racing. First glance, I was like, what? What happened? Like, why is this the case? Because a couple months ago, Nick Sanchez had confirmed to frontstretch.com that he was going to return to the number 48 next year. And so now that Nick Sanchez himself says he won't return, the question is, why is this the case? For me, this feels like a funding issue. The team just needed to find a driver that brings funding, and from my understanding, Nick Sanchez brings very, very little. And Nick Sanchez is extremely talented. Got a win, made the playoffs, and I thought, the stat line that he put up this year would have been reason for Nick Sanchez to stay. But looking now, I feel like it's a funding issue. Nick Sanchez brings very little of it. Who will Big Machine sign for next year? I mean, there's Chris Wright. He brings some funding. Connor Mosack brings some funding. Maybe Big Machine Racing can steal Max Reeves. Max Reeves also brings his own funding. Max Reeves is also a Toyota prospect, one of their developmental drivers. So I don't know who they will sign, but big bummer for Nick Sanchez. I feel like that's a very, very unfortunate, but yeah, we'll have to see what happens next year regarding Nick Sanchez and Big Machine Racing. We'll keep an eye on that. Next up, Joe Gibbs Racing has announced that Brent Cruz will drive the number 19 car for 29 of the 33 races. According to Bob Pockrass, Seth Chavka who was the crew chief of the number 19 car this year, will crew chief for Brent Cruz next year. And Brent Cruz will miss Daytona, Atlanta, and Darlington before turning 18 at the end of March. This is a pretty big signing for Brent Cruz. Basically, he's full-time next year, just missing some years due to age. And he's got some big expectations for him. The 19 car won 3 races and also won the Owners' Championship. So this is a big, big test for Brent Cruz. Hopefully he can win some races. He's got the resources to do just that. Wishing Brent Cruz the best of luck for next year. Next up, according to Bob Pockrass, once again, Corey Day will drive the Hendrick number 17 O'Reilly Auto Parts car full-time next year. Adam Wall will be the crew chief. And looking at this is another big opportunity for Corey Day. You know, this year was kind of a learning year for him. Statistically, he got better during the second half of the 2025 season, and he's now basically going full-time next year, and it's a huge opportunity. I'll be rooting for him, so I don't know how he will perform. I feel like Hendrick Motorsports is capable of making the playoffs in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. They're a championship program for the Cup Series. I feel like the same could probably be said for their O'Reilly Auto Parts team. So big opportunity for Corey Day. Wishing him the best of luck. Continuing along, SS Greenlight Racing has announced that Josh Bilicki will drive the 07 car in the O'Reilly Series full-time. Josh Bilicki drove for DGM Racing last season part-time, referring to this year, and he announced that he won't return for DGM Racing. Now he's going to be full-time next year for SS Greenlight Racing. Not much to report here. I was kind of wondering where Josh Williams was going to go since he announced that he wouldn't be returning to DGM Racing. SS Greenlight Racing is a bit of a shock to me, but I feel like SS Greenlight Racing kind of needs a full-time driver. Josh Bilicki is a great fit. Wishing Josh Williams and SS Greenlight Racing the best of luck. And speaking of DGM Racing has announced that Josh Williams will reunite with the team and drive the number 92 car full-time in 2026 in a multi-year agreement. According to the full release, Steve Addington will be the crew chief, Reed Sorensen will be the spotter, and this is pretty big news for DGM Racing. I was kind of wondering, after Bilicki announced that he won't return to the team, I was like, oh boy, like who are they going to get now? And I feel like the options were kind of limited for this team. And, now at the time of, as I'm saying this, the answer might have been pretty obvious. Very happy for Josh Williams kind of making a return home. It's just unfortunate that he wasn't successful for Colleague Racing when he was there. But still rooting for Josh Williams, wishing him the best of luck. Continuing right along, Austin Green has announced on X that he will drive the 87 full-time for Peterson Racing. Peterson Racing will also have a technical alliance with Richard Childress Racing. Pretty cool news. Austin Green, his main strengths statistically have been on the road courses, and now full-time with a technical alliance with Richard Childress. I'm hyped for Austin Green. I think he's definitely earned a full-time ride. Peterson Racing is essentially a brand new O'Reilly Auto Parts Series team that's making its full-time season debut, essentially. Wishing Peterson Racing and Austin Green the best of luck. That's going to be a team that I will watch for, especially on the road courses. Next up, Alpha Prime Racing has announced that Brennan Poole will return to the number 44 car. Alpha Prime Racing has also announced that LeVar Scott will drive the number 45 car full-time next year. The team also kind of gave an update. Normally they drive a third part-time entry, and they're basically saying that their third entry will run a limited amount of races. So, yeah, that's a big announcement for Alpha Prime Racing. Not too much to say about Brennan Poole. Brennan Poole did what he could under the equipment that he was in. Took like top 30 to top 25 cars and made it finish in the top 20 and top 15. And that's really good for Brennan Poole. And, I just kind of wonder, like, maybe he gets a shot at driving for a top organization in 2027. So wishing him the best of luck. Now for LeVar Scott, this is a big step up considering the last full-time series he was in back in Arca. So from Arca to O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, I feel like this is going to be a challenge for him. Alpha Prime Racing is not a Joe Gibbs Racing by any means. They're a good team. I feel like Brendan Poole can kind of take his experience and apply it for LeVar Scott. I feel like LeVar Scott is going to be leaning on Brendan Poole for a while. And LeVar Scott can definitely, not tear up your equipment, kind of like Brendan Poole. So I feel like overall, Alpha Prime Racing signed a pretty good, rookie driver. But LeVar Scott he's going to be challenged. Like, this is going to be a challenge for LeVar Scott. I'm confident that he won't tear up Alpha Prime Racing's equipment. I just don't know what my expectations are for LeVar Scott right now, because there's a lot of competition. Brent Cruz is basically full-time. Corey Day is full-time. Like, there's a lot that is still yet to be announced, and there's a lot of competition, next year. But either way, wishing LeVar Scott, Brennan Poole, and Alpha Prime Racing the best of luck. We've got a few more teams to cover. Viking Motorsports has made some big announcements for next season. First, they announced that Parker Retzlaff will drive the number 99 for the team. They also announced that Anthony Alfredo will drive the number 96. So essentially, the team is expanding. And then the last little piece of news, Viking Motorsports announced a technical alliance with Richard Childress Racing. First off, happy for Parker Retzlaff. I think next season is a big season for him as far as, what his plans might potentially be for 2027. I think Parker Retzlaff and Viking Motorsports have some potential, but we'll kind of have to wait and see how they perform. They've got that technical alliance with Richard Childress Racing, so it could be, it could work out. Like, Parker Retzlaff could kind of blow me out of the water for next season, so we'll have to wait and see. Now, for Anthony Alfredo driving the 96 with Josh Graham being the crew chief, I don't know. I feel like that could kind of be said for Parker Retzlaff. Like, Alfredo and Viking Motorsports, I feel like they have potential. But when I look back at it now, when I look at the bigger picture of this team, I feel like this is going to be short-lived. And what I mean by that is I feel like Retzlaff or Alfredo, either one of the two, they might not be able to be and remain full-time for next season. Like, I remember when Our Motorsports had made the announcement and decided to go all in, 3 full-time entries in 2022, and then like halfway through the season, they had to let Brett Moffitt go, one of their drivers, because they didn't have enough funding to keep him in the car for the rest of the year. And ever since that year happened, they've statistically gotten worse and worse. And then this year they had signed Chris Wright full-time, and I think when we got to Dover, like in March or in April, they unfortunately closed down their operation for good. Like, they shut down for good. So I have a feeling the same could be said, for Viking Motorsports. I mean, they let Matt DiBenedetto go for like the final 4 races of the year, and they signed Connor Mosack, and Mosack brought funding for the team. So I was just kind of like, no way they're expanding their operation. I mean, Alfredo and Retzlaff do bring their own funding, credit to them, but I just feel like they won't be able to remain being full-time when we get to like October of next year. But I'll ignore that. That's something that I shouldn't be thinking about for next year. That's something that I shouldn't be thinking about. I'll ignore it. This is great news. Glad to see a team expanding. Wishing Viking Motorsports the best of luck for next year. Next up, Young's Motorsports has announced that Ryan Ellis will drive the 02 car full-time for the team. According to Bob Pockris, Young's Motorsports is expanding their operation, and the 42 car will return. It's just TBD on the driver and the sponsor and all that. Young's Motorsports Truck Series program is also TBD, according to Bob Pockris, and kind of reacting to this is pretty cool. Ryan Ellis leaving DGM Racing for Young's Motorsports. another team that's expanding their operation. Again, we won't really know who's going to drive the number 42 car. Personally, I don't really have many guesses as to who will drive it, but we'll have to wait and see. Wishing Ryan Ellis and Young's Motorsports the best of luck for next season. Continuing right along with Jordan Anderson Racing, their driver lineup for this year is basically going to be the same next year. The team announced that Jeb Burton returns to the 27 car for a fourth year. Blaine Perkins returns to the number 31. And according to Bob Pockris, Jordan Anderson Racing will have an alliance with Richard Childress Racing and will also field an all-star car, the 32 car. This basically means that the 32 car will be full-time. It'll just have a different number of drivers as the week goes on. So big news for Jordan Anderson Racing. Not too much to say. Happy for Jeb Burton. Jeb Burton has done pretty well for them. Almost got them to the playoffs this year. And for Blaine Perkins, hopefully he can improve from this year to next year. This year was statistically his best season that he's had yet. 4 top 10s, an average finish of 23.7. Honestly, not too bad. I feel like the next expectation for him is kind of to improve that average finish. Like the top 10s is great. Like that is just something that I would not expect of Blaine Perkins, because Blaine Perkins, he's been kind of driving from team to team, and the results statistically haven't been good to what he wanted. And this year was his best year yet, and I feel like that gives him even more confidence for next year. So wishing Jordan Anderson Racing, Jeb Burton, Blaine Perkins the best of luck for next year. Next up, RSS Racing has announced that they will switch from Ford to Chevy for next year. They will continue their alliance with Haas Factory Team and will run Hendrick engines. Matt Noyce will continue to be the crew chief for Ryan Sieg, and Aiden, I think that's how you say it, Aiden McHugh, who was the crew chief for a good part of the season for Cope Family Racing, he will be the crew chief for Kyle Sieg. When I saw this announcement, like back during, a few months ago, Haas Factory Team had made an announcement that they were going to switch to Chevy. And, Haas Factory Team has that technical alliance with RSS Racing when they were driving Fords. And I kind of figured that RSS Racing would most likely switch to Chevy. And, personally, as a race fan, I'm a fan of Ford teams. Like, I root for Ford in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series mainly because their entries are very, very limited. Like, there's only 4 entries that compete competitively on a week-to-week basis. And, to see this change, to see RSS Racing and Haas that both used to run Fords and now are running Chevys for next year, like, that is a stinker. That is a huge stinker. But I am excited to see how RSS Racing performs, because I've been a race fan. I've been a fan of that team for a couple of years, personally as a race fan, and I feel like next year is the year where Ryan Sieg gets that first career win, because he came very close to getting in at Texas. I remember saying it at the time, like, next year is going to be the season where he finally gets it, and I can't wait to see, how RSS Racing will perform. Wishing that group the best of luck. And since I mentioned Cope Family Racing, they have been kind of cooking this off-season. According to Bob Pockris, Cope Family Racing has partnered with Stanton Barrett Motorsports for next year. And it's basically named Stanton Barrett Motorsports with Cope Family Racing, or for short, SBM with CFR. The team will field the number 30 car, kind of a rebrand from the number 70, so the 70 car will now be the number 30, and they will continue to field a Chevy entry with their drivers and sponsors to be determined. Pretty cool, honestly. Very shocking, too. Something that I definitely didn't have on my bingo card. I'm excited. Like, I like when I see these kinds of partnerships. Like, obviously, I don't really know the reason why this is happening. Like, I'm basically seeing the information like everyone else. I'm not there for kind of like the insights. So, like, this could be a funding issue. I did see a couple of rumors of where, like, Cope Family Racing was kind of looking for a full-time driver with funding, and that could be the case. That could be the case with this partnership here, but either way, kind of ignoring that, I kind of like seeing these partnerships, and we'll find out who will drive the number 30. Good luck to SMB with CFR for next year. Alrighty, last little piece of O'Reilly Auto Parts Series news. I swear, this is a big one. This is a one that will kind of end it out with a bang. AM Racing, a team that normally runs Fords, has sold its operations to Sigma Performance Services Racing. Sigma Performance Services is basically an Arca Menard Series team, and the team said in a press release that it will field entries in the Arca Menard Series, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and will also have a late model program. So, just kind of looking at this is basically the only Ford team that will run full-time in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. It could be 2 entries, it could be 1 entry. I feel like it could be 1 entry. Like this team, Sigma Performance Services, it's a brand new team that will be racing in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series for the first time. So, I don't know what to think. Man, oh man, Ford is kind of getting screwed right now. As far as the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series goes, like Sigma Performance Services is going to be the only Ford team. Like, I mean, okay, Joey Gase Motorsports also fields, Fords, but they also field Chevys. Like they switch manufacturers from week in to week out. The only team that will run Fords consistently, full time for the entire year is Sigma Performance Services Racing. And at first I thought it was going to be AM Racing, but now they just sold their operation. So I don't know. I don't really know what's going to happen, for next year. I don't know who they're going to announce. We will see what happens, and I can't wait to make my reaction to. I can't wait for y'all to hear my reaction of who they actually sign. All right, so that was the last little piece of O'Reilly Auto Parts Series news. We'll now get into some Truck Series news. Rheaume Brothers Racing has rebranded itself as now Team Rheaume, and Team Rheaume announced that Frankie Muniz will return to the team full-time in 2026, driving the number 33. Okay, when I saw this, I was a little bit shocked. I was a little bit shocked because Frankie Muniz, to start the year, had a lot of DNFs to start the season. And then near the end of the season, he got injured, and he wasn't even, injured during a race. So it's safe to say that he's had a very, very rough start to his NASCAR career, and I feel very, very bad for him. I don't think you can have a worse start than that. Not to insult him or anything. I just feel I feel like a lot of other fans really, really feel bad for him. I was expecting Frankie Muniz's 2025 season to be his last, but to see that announcement, it kind of shows me that Frankie Muniz doesn't want to give up. He doesn't give up, and he wants to continue to get better, and I'm all for it. I am all for it. I think Frankie Muniz is probably one of fan favorites when it comes to hardcore NASCAR fans watching the Arca Menard Series, the Truck Series, and I think Frankie Muniz, is one of those favorite drivers. And yeah, I'm very, very happy for Frankie Muniz. I bet I'll be talking to him at Daytona next year, wishing him the best of luck. Next up, just some small colleague racing news. They announced their Truck Series numbers for the 2026 season. Daniel Dye will drive the number 10. Justin Haley will drive the number 16. Brendan Queen will drive the number 12. That's an interesting number. The number 25 is Colleague's All-Star truck. And then the number 14 truck is apparently top secret, according to Colleague Racing's X account. So, pretty cool. Can't wait to hear who's going to drive the 25 and the 14 truck for next season. The last little piece of Truck Series news, Tricon Garage has announced that Caden Honeycutt will drive the 11 truck full-time next year, replacing Corey Heim. This is something that was kind of already happening. Lots of fans saw this announcement, including me, that Honeycutt was let go by Nice Motorsports, the second to last race of the regular Truck Series season, and he went to Young's Motorsports to stay eligible for the playoffs, and then drove for Halmar Friesen Racing and the number 52 truck for Toyota for the rest of the season. And this is something that had kind of been expected, and now it's official. There are big expectations for Caden Honeycutt. There will be some tough competition. Colleague Racing with Brendan Queen, Justin Haley, Christian Eckes. He's going to be back in the trucks for McAnally Hilchman Racing. Front Row Motorsports is also very, very fast with Lane Riggs and Chandler Smith. And don't even count out Thorsport Racing. Ben Rhodes and Ty Majeski, they could sneak in there. Ty Majeski and Ben Rhodes, I believe made the playoffs. So big expectations for Caden. Big expectations for Caden Honeycutt. I think the expectation for him is to potentially win, 4 or 5 races, maybe win 3 at a minimum, because I don't think you can replicate what Corey Heim did this year. I just don't think it's possible. So I feel like winning, 4 to 5 races is a good, is a successful season for Caden Honeycutt. So, man, I just can't wait to see how he'll do in 2026. Good luck to him and Tricon Garage. Now we'll go ahead and move on to some Arca Menard Series news. Decent amount of news, one piece of driver news, but do have some schedule news regarding the series. First up, the Arca West Series schedule has been released. Let's go ahead and take a look. 12 races. The second race is going to be a combination of the West Series and the Main Division Series. That'll be at Phoenix Raceway on FS1. All of the other races will be on Flow Racing. Kern Speedway being the season opener and the season finale. Pretty cool. I actually really like that track in the West Coast. The racing is actually pretty good and was very, very good this year. And overall, it kind of looks fine. Kind of continuing along with the schedule news, the Arca Menards East Series schedule has also been released. We'll take another look at that. Hickory Motor Speedway, the season opener. Wow, the Arca Menard Series racing there for the first time. That's very exciting. Arca is also returning to Rockingham. That's nice. Iowa Speedway and Bristol Motor Speedway, the final 2 races of the Arca East Series season. That's very nice. Bristol Motor Speedway. That's going to be a great season finale for the Arca East Series. They're also racing at Nashville Fairgrounds. Overall, not too much change to the schedule for both series. It is a bit unfortunate that the Arca East Series isn't racing at Five Flags Speedway, but I mean, hey, Arca Menard Series racing at Hickory for the first time, that's going to be pretty fun to watch. Overall, pretty good schedule, nothing really to complain. Then the driver news, Eric Johnson Jr. has announced that he will return to the number 5 full-time for Jerry Pitts Racing in the Arca Menards West Series. Happy he's back full-time. This year, he finished 4th in the standings, and his best finish this year was at Tucson Speedway, where he finished 2nd. This year was his best year statistically, and I think next year, the expectation for him is to break through and get that win and really be a contender for the Arca West Series Championship. Now, to call it a day, we'll wrap up with one little piece of IndyCar news. Hunkos Hollinger Racing confirms and has announced that Stingray Robb will return to pilot the number 77 next year. I like this move. Stingray Robb is a good driver. Finished 9th at Long Beach this year. That was his best race that year. Got a decent average finish. I think like 19.4. Now I feel like that leaves, as far as the IndyCar Silly season goes, that leaves 3 spots up for grabs for next year. Hunkos Hollinger Racing still has 1 spot left, and I believe Dale Coyne Racing, from my understanding, hasn't even signed anything. So happy for Stingray Robb. I think Stingray Robb did what he could under the equipment that he was in. Really stood out. His performance at Long Beach really stood out to me, and I can't wait to see what he'll do for next year. Can't wait for the IndyCar Series season to begin. Good luck to Stingray Robb and Hunkos Hollinger Racing next year. And that is gonna do it. Yeah, that was a pretty good episode for this week. Again, this is my last episode of the semester. I don't know if I'm gonna do any episodes during the winter break. I'm probably just gonna take that time to kind of rest up, recharge, spend some time with family, and I'll be working on some stuff during the winter break, and I think it's something that you will very, very much enjoy. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all had a great, fall semester, and can't wait to talk to you all again next year in 2026. I hope you guys have a great Christmas, and I hope you guys have a great new year. Can't wait to see you all again. Have a great day, everybody. Take care, y'all.